So if there's one thing I love, it's Final Fantasy. And if there's another thing that I love, it's Platinum Trophy hunting on PlayStation. I and my group of friends have over 150 Platinum Trophies on my account, so I thought to myself, why not put my hands together and try and get every Platinum Trophy there is for any Final Fantasy games that have been released on PlayStation. So I also thought about perhaps doing guides on each individual game, but for now what I want to do is take you through all of the games that are available on PlayStation to be platinumed, which ones are difficult, which ones are achievable and easy, and which ones I would recommend you guys start with if you want to go on a similar journey to what I'm doing at the same time. So I have two rules for this list. One, it has to actually have a Platinum Trophy, so therefore you're not going to see the expansions for Final Fantasy XIV or Crystal Chronicles or Crystal Defenders, and it has to have been released outside of Japan, so no Itadaki Street for those of you who know what that is. So we have 28 games here to go with, and I'll be very transparent and say I have not yet finished my journey to platinum every Final Fantasy. I have gotten most of them, but I'll be very transparent in telling you which ones I don't have, whether it's because I either haven't started them yet or because I've hit a bit of a brick wall with them. Perhaps you've got the ones that I'm missing and you can leave a comment below to tell me what your experience with them was like. So I've already set us up ready to start. We've got 5 difficulty settings going from Ultima all the way down to a Moogle could do it. So let's start ourselves off with Final Fantasy 1 because that's where you should start really. And honestly, Final Fantasy 1, and you'll notice this with a lot of the pixel remasters, are insanely easy. I would say that Final Fantasy 1 takes maybe 10 to 15 hours. It really doesn't take very long, certainly not if you're following a guide. And the updates to the pixel remasters allowing you quadruple experience, quadruple gil, quadruple ability points, all of the shenanigans that you could possibly want means that really, these are as difficult as you want them to be. All you have to really do is worrying about getting all of the chests, getting all of the enemies in the bestiary, which is something you'll see commonly across all of the pixel remasters. But again, it's not especially difficult. Final Fantasy 2, just as easy as Final Fantasy 1 for exactly the same reasons. And Final Fantasy 2 in some ways is actually even easier. You just have to be careful because there are areas in which you can miss chests and bestiary entries. So where Final Fantasy 1 you can't really miss anything, from here on out there are going to be trophies that you can miss out on because of those enemies or the chests that you might not have picked up. So just be sure, if you're not following a guide, to scour every single area that you enter and you'll get this platinum within 10 to 15 hours as well. Moving into Final Fantasy 3, same deal. I would say the only thing that really gets added to Final Fantasy 3 are the missable hidden items, and the same applies to Final Fantasy 2 and 1 as this as well, but you need to go to every location on the world map as well. So you want to make sure you don't miss out on chocobo forests or those little hidden areas that you maybe didn't think about when you went through it casually. But again, Final Fantasy 3, if you're following a guide, will take you no more than 15 hours or so, maybe 20 at a push. Final Fantasy 4, very much the same deal as the other 3, but from this point on it will ramp up a little bit in difficulty for various reasons, but mainly because the trophies just take longer because the games are that much longer. But as long as you're getting all those enemy entries, I struggled for a little while on FF4 with green dragons, so while you're going through the Tower of Babel, if you've played FF4 before, make sure you get a green dragon, because otherwise you're going to have to go through and do the whole thing again like I did. So I still think that this is so easy a Moogle could do it, and the same is true for the majority of the pixel remasters, purely because of those tweaks you can make to make the game stupidly easy if you wanted to. But because it's a little longer, I figured that that was at least worth mentioning. Now, Final Fantasy V, I'm actually going to put in the easy tier rather than the Moogles could do it. It's still easy. It's still got all of those same kind of quality of life bits and pieces that the other pixel remasters on PlayStation have. However, it's just that there are a lot more missable items than there are in Final Fantasy IV or those prior to it. So as long as you're catching all of those beats, you'll probably still find it easier, but you might find you have to go through the game more than once because it's very easy to just miss one thing because you have the pianos, you have the hidden items, of which there are many in that game. There's a lot of points of no return in Final Fantasy V when switching between world transitions, and there's a lot of enemies to go and farm. So it's still easy, but I'm just putting it a tier above the others just for that reason alone. Final Fantasy VI, I was tempted to put in the moderate category for one trophy, but realistically it is only the one trophy that makes FF6 even remotely challenging, and it's not even challenging, it's just horrendously tedious, which is Death's Joker. So other than that, very much the same story as all of the other Pixel remasters. However, Death's Joker is an ability that is cast by Setzer's slots ability and is completely RNG dependent. And I have found a few different methods on various different websites and TikTok and things like that to try and get Joker's death to trigger. But realistically, it's just one of those things that's either going to happen while you're playing through it, or you're gonna have to sit and spam the slots ability until it happens. And you can set it up to do it on auto, but because Joker's death can also target your party as well as your enemies, that's not gonna work either, because the number of times I tried to do that and I ended up KOing my own party. Yeah, don't do that. Pay attention to what's going on. But once you've got Joker's death out of the way, the rest of it's actually just as simple as the others. Final Fantasy VII, you'll be surprised to hear, is actually a lot easier than the vast majority of the Final Fantasy games, and there's a period of time where the trophies get insanely difficult. But 7 really isn't one of them. All you have to do is make sure you're getting all of the limit breaks as you're going past. The hardest trophy, I would say, is getting the date with Barrett, because that means you have to actually pay attention to all of your conversation choices up until you go to Gold Saucer. But once you've done that, it's really not difficult at all. Hitting max level is really easy because you can go to Northern Cave and do movers as your way of gaining buttloads of experience. Getting ultimate weapons is really easy once you know the game well enough. And, you know, the limit breaks, it's the same thing. Basically, you're just being rewarded for playing the game, so I really wouldn't worry too much about the trophies outside of that. Where Final Fantasy VII Classic was pretty easy, I wouldn't say that Remake was all that much harder either, to be honest. It's more challenging than 7 is, but only because you have to play through the game twice. You have to play through the game and make sure you get all of the mini games done and out of the way, make sure you get all the good gear, and then play through the game again on hard mode, which isn't that difficult. It's more challenging than anything we've had up until this point, because you do have to kind of build your characters in a particular way in order to really do well in 7 Remake, but it's not that challenging. You've got Pride and Joy, as it's known now in 7 Remake, at the end of hard mode, and intermission doesn't really factor into the trophies either. If you want to complete the 100% and get the trophies from intermission, you'll obviously have to do things like Vice as well. But if you just want the Platinum, 7 Remake is pretty enjoyable. If I have any piece of advice, it's to space out the 2 playthroughs you do for 7 Remake, unless you're gearing up for 7 Rebirth, of course. Then, because I did it one after the other, and I have a habit of doing this and just getting to the Platinum, and it does impact your enjoyment of the game a little bit if you do that. If you're a trophy hunter like I am, then go all in, but I wouldn't say 7 Remake was that challenging. So Final Fantasy VIII remastered version, I'm also going to put in the easy category, and I promise you, they don't all look like this. Everything up until 8 looks like, oh, are they all this easy? Trust me, they're really not. But Final Fantasy VIII really isn't that bad either. Like, as long as you're able to play triple triad, then you're pretty much good. And the most tedious trophy here is kill 1,000 enemies, which I went to the Cactuar Island because it gives you the largest number of enemies in a single encounter, whilst also being able to farm like AP and stuff that you can then use later on. Make sure that you're staying on top of side quests because they are missable, but beyond that, no, it's really not that bad. So like I said, up until this point, I've said that they're all really easy. These next few games are nasty. Final Fantasy IX is my favourite Final Fantasy. As a matter of fact, on my Twitter, I have been making daily posts wishing for a Final Fantasy IX remake, like daily. It's one of, if not the hardest Platinum trophies to get from a Final Fantasy game. And I've done it, and I had to play through the game maybe 7 times to get this, because there's always a trophy that you can't get at the same time as you get something else. So, for example, everyone who's played any Final Fantasy knows the infamy of Excalibur 2. You can actually make this trophy easier by using triple speed, because the nice thing with 9 on PS4 is that the triple speed booster doesn't impact your in-game clock. It just impacts the speed at which you're playing the game. So if you get to the end within 12 hours, you get Excalibur 2, which is a trophy in and of itself. And using the triple speed booster definitely makes that a lot easier. It doesn't, however, make it easier to use the jump rope, the Hail to the King trophy, the King of Jump Rope. That's horrendous and should be eradicated, and if they ever do remake it, I hope that trophy doesn't make a return. You also need to learn how to play Tetramaster, which is inferior, in my opinion, to Triple Triad in every way. You also need to be able to get every treasure chest in the game so that you get Treasure Hunter rank S, and you also need to kill 10,000 enemies as opposed to 8's 1,000. Now, I'll give you a quick tip for this particular trophy. With the 10,000 enemy kills, what you can do is in the section where Steiner and Marcus are in the cage in Alexandria, once you get out of that cage, you'll find that Alexandrian soldiers kind of come and attack you as opposed to you attacking them. If you leave the boosters on for like max damage, triple speed, all of that, and I used my tablet with a remote play so that I could see in the corner of my eye that it was definitely still working, and you can leave that on, and even that will take you at least a day and a half, maybe 2 days to get that trophy, and that's by far the easiest way to do it. If you do this manually, you're a better player than me, but suffice to say, 9's trophy list is a big barrier for anyone wanting to be a collector for these trophies like I am. It is hard. Final Fantasy X, absolutely my most recommended Final Fantasy to anyone who has never played a Final Fantasy before. It is not what I would recommend as the first trophy to go for though, because like 9, 10 is horrendously difficult. Not necessarily for any one particular reason, but because there's so much you have to do in it. So, where I said in Final Fantasy VII, getting the ultimate weapons and the limit breaks was quite easy. The super bosses aren't that bad when you know what you're doing. Like Ruby Weapon and Emerald Weapon had infamy back in the day. In the modern day, they're really not that bad. Penance, still pretty bad. Still pretty nasty unless you're deciding to use your Jimbo to take him out in one shot. And Penance is the least of your worries, because in order to get all of those ultimate weapons, you have to do some of the BS stuff. Like a lot of people complain about the Chocobo racing. I really don't think the Chocobo racing is that bad. I actually did this trophy on stream and got it on my like second try and then couldn't recreate it for like 2 days later, but that's not the point. And then on, you've also got to fill out the sphere grid with every single character, like every single one. And I'm not talking about just filling out just the sphere grid you've got. You have to fill every node of every character on the sphere grid, which the grind for this takes up half the time for the trophy. You're looking at 100 hours plus with this trophy. Let's not mention, obviously, lightning bolts as well, like as part of the Celestial Weapon collection. There's a lot that you have to do in Final Fantasy X, and no one part of it is particularly egregious, except maybe the lightning strikes. But there's so much it adds up that you need to just do a lot in order to get this trophy. So I'm absolutely putting it up there with 9. 10-2. 10-2 is actually my most recent platinum on this list. That's going in ultimate difficulty as well. 10-2 has so much BS in it when it comes to trophy hunting it, it's not even funny. So not only do you have to get 100% of the story completion in Final Fantasy X-2, which is very difficult to do in a single playthrough in and of its own right. In fact, it's well known how BS the percentage system is in Final Fantasy X-2. As a matter of fact, my friend and I played through this together, and even with a guide, and even with everything else involved, we still hit 99% by the end of it. Luckily, you can play through it a second time and make a different decision in Chapter 2 that helps you get another 1 or 2% that edges it towards the 100, and we got it that way. But it's still pretty horrendous. Not to mention, Via Infinito is part of that 100%, and that takes forever to get through. And then once you've done that, you have the joys of Last Mission. Last Mission is the strangest minigame I've played in a Final Fantasy game, and it's this weird roguelike dungeon crawler real-time thing, and it just doesn't make any sense for a lot of the time. I managed to get my head around it, and then I had to play through it 3 times because the RNG for the item that I needed to drop for the Tombury's treasure trophy just wouldn't drop. So I just had to go through it multiple times until I got it. So yeah, I'd actually argue 10-2 is just as difficult as 9 and 10, if not harder in some ways. So Final Fantasy 12 is the one I'm currently working on. This is one I haven't quite got yet. But I can definitely say, from the experience I've had with it so far and what is coming in the future, I can quite comfortably put it in the moderate tier. It's not really that bad. It's one of those things you have to kind of build up to do. And once you've got there, the rest of it's kind of easy. Nothing's really missable in Final Fantasy 12 because the Zodiac Age removed the missables and the BS surrounding the Zodiac Spear. There's actually much better stuff that you can get to help you with the trophies for Final Fantasy 12. If you've ever heard of the Seitengrat bow, that's the way to go when it comes to an easy ride through Final Fantasy 12. If anything, I'd say the worst thing about 12, other than having to navigate the Great Crystal so that you can get all of the Espers and to get through the story, because the Great Crystal sucks and it's by far the worst dungeon in the series, is having to do all the hunts, because when it's a product of its time. You had to go to the hunt board, then find the person who's giving the hunt, then go and do the hunt, then go back and report it to the person who gave it to you, then go and report it back to the board, and you have to do that a lot, and that'll eventually culminate in Yasmat, who isn't difficult, just takes forever. Again, if you're going for Seitengrat, really not that bad, but you do still have to pay attention to it, because that amount of health doesn't go down quickly, even with those weapons. And then Trial Mode, the final boss of Trial Mode is the culmination of all of the judges, which if you're doing it properly is extremely difficult, but if you're cheesing it, it's not too bad, which is why I've put it in the moderate tier. If you wanted to take this seriously and do it properly without any of the cheesing methods, I'd put it upper tier, but even with the cheese methods, it takes quite a while to get to everything, and it's very easy to get lost in what you're doing, so that's why I've put it squarely in the middle. So I'll be transparent here, I don't have the Platinum Trophies for 13 or 13.2 yet, but I do have the Platinum for Lightning Returns from back when I had it on the PS3. Primary reason for that is I don't currently have a PS3, and there's the only way to Platinum 13 and 13.2. However, I've played them both enough to know where I would put them on this list. So 13 we'll start with, and I think 13 is going to be the first entry into the hard but not impossible category. 13's main difficult trophy is having to hold every item, weapon, and accessory in the game all at once in your inventory, which is difficult. Like, because you are expected to use a lot of items to make the weapons and the accessories, and you're expected to sell items in order to have the guild to do that, it just means that you have a lot of grinding to do to get to that point. Once you've got that, it's the only trophy that's missable as well, because you can miss weapons and accessories while you're playing through the game. The rest of it, like getting 5-star ratings on all of the Seathstone missions, doing the Adamantoise is really easy, especially if you use Death with Vanille, that makes that really easy. And it wasn't that long ago I played 13, so I'm going to have to find a PS3 and get through this one fairly soon. Once I've done 12, I think this might be one of the next ones I decide to do. But it's hard because of that one trophy. The rest of it really isn't too bad, but that one trophy is bad enough that I would put it above the difficulty of, say, 7 Remake or 12. 13.2 I actually think is a little easier than 13. I would put it squarely in the moderate category. It's the most moderate trophy set that there is. All you have to do really is complete the game, and by that I mean get all the paradox endings, kill all the super bosses, go through the game whilst getting all of the gear that you need and collecting all the monsters that you can. It's been a while since I've played 13.2, but looking through the trophy list and remembering my experience with it and speaking with other players of 13.2, no one seems to believe that this one is particularly difficult. I will have to experience this one myself, I will hold my hands up and say, but I don't remember it being that difficult, and I don't think that there's anything missable within 13.2, so it shouldn't be too bad. Lightning Returns is one I'm glad that I already have, and I did get this quite a long time ago, so I don't remember a huge amount of it, but looking at trophy guides and kind of refreshing my memory of how it went, the only thing I will say about Lightning Returns is that I think it's harder than 13.2, but not quite as hard as 13 is, mainly because you're expected to play it multiple times. You have to play it at least twice because in order to get all of the accessories upgraded for a particular trophy, you have to upgrade accessories 30 times. You have to have gotten the same accessory twice on New Game Plus, and similar to how you do in Final Fantasy 16 as well. But other than that, it's just a case of getting all of the story beats correctly, finding all of the garments as you find them. The only thing I will say, and this is something I'm not sure about, and I'm hoping that if we ever get a remaster of this, which will inevitably mean that I'll need to play through all 3 of the 13 games again for the plats for them, that a lot of the pre-order stuff that came with Lightning Returns back when I bought it when it was on PS3 were stuff like the First Soldier garb and the Eunice Summoner garb, stuff like that, that were actually insanely powerful, and I'm not sure if those items are still available. So if you are going to Platinum Lightning Returns, I'd be keen to hear from you if these items are still available, because if they're not, I do think that this would be moderately harder. And those words make me go, oh, I'm not sure whether I'd put that here or here, but I'm going to put it here because I definitely don't think it's as hard as 13. Well, this next one is a thing. It's the next entry into the ultimate difficulty for sure, which is 14. 14 actually isn't difficult to get the trophies on, and to be honest with you, there are actually 2 platinums that you can get for 14, one of which is the PS4 version and one of which is the PS5 version. The PS4 version is significantly easier than the PS5 version is, and if you want to get 100% trophies, like not just the platinum, ones across all of the expansions as well, I would honestly put 14 in a tier above Ultima, because you're expected to do the ultimates, you're expected to do all the savages, you're expected to do crazy amounts of grinding. I mean, you need to do crazy amounts of grinding just for the regular platinum, but it's obscene the things you need to do to 100% trophy every expansion in 14. But for argument's sake, we're just going with the platinum. We're not going for 100% here. If you're going off the PS4 version, I would argue you could put it down here, but I'd still put it in ultimate difficulty just because of how long everything takes. You need to do a lot of like collectibles and fates, things like that, in order to get through it. However, the PS5 version asks you for a crazy number of the things it asks you to do. So I am currently working on this and have been for well over a year at this point, and I'm slowly chipping away at it. You need to get a job to level 90, like Disciple of Hand and Land to level 90, which isn't too bad, apart from the fact that I started these trophies on PC before I had the PS4 version or PS5 version, which meant that I already had every job at level 90, and it was only recently that I kind of rekindled hope in getting the platinum for 14, because the trophy for getting a job to level 90, no matter what I did, just wouldn't pop. So I now have those, so I had to do 8,000 collectibles, which bless my stream audience for sitting with me while I was doing that, because I would have gone insane, and I'm surprised that they didn't. And I also have to do 3,000 fates. So I've done 1,000 of them, but doing 3,000 fates is boring. Try and find different things that you can do with fates. So if you're working on a relic weapon, for example, or you want bi-colored gemstones, getting the shared fates done will help with stuff like that. None of it makes 14's platinum any easier, really, but at least you're killing 2 birds with 1 stone, and you're doing something with 14 that you can use after you've gone for the platinum. This one is long, and while nothing there is particularly hard, it's so long I can't put it any lower than the ultimate difficulty. Final Fantasy 15, really not that bad, honestly. I would put it somewhere between these two. Like I'll put it in moderate, because I don't think it's like as easy as the ones underneath it, because there is a lot you have to do in terms of time spent. Like you have to finish 80 side quests. You have to max out all of their skills. So Noctis, Prompto, Gladio, and Ignis each have a skill. One of like Noctis is fishing, Prompto's is photography, etc. So as long as you remember those things, it's not that bad. And like you have Pitios Ruins. But generally speaking, 15 isn't a particularly difficult game. Royal Edition adds some stuff to it, and one of the things that I will say that I really enjoy about the trophy hunting is I didn't discover that I liked trophy hunting until after Royal Edition had come out, having already played base 15, and it gave me impetus to go back and play it again through a new set of eyes with Royal Edition, and I actually enjoyed my time with 15 a lot more the second time around. So if you want a reason to perhaps explore some of these trophies, then let that be a good reason to do so, because you can see some of these games that perhaps you loved and you want to see through new eyes again with, you know, a new lease, if you will. But 15 really isn't that bad. As long as you're getting all of the hunts done, doing all the side quests, mastering all your abilities, if you want an easy way to go through doing that, Experimagic is a really good way to get a lot of AP and levels very quickly, and there are guides online. And as I said, if people enjoy this video, I might make video guides on platinuming each of these games singularly and see what people think of that. I know that I have friends in the space that already do stuff like that, like Genesis7. If you haven't watched his videos, please go and watch them. They're extremely informative if you're into this kind of thing. But 15's really not that bad. It's definitely middle of the road. Bottom end of the middle of the road. So that brings me to 16. 16, I'm actually going to put in the easy category. 16's really quite simple to do. And I will say that the accessibility accessories do add a lot to this if you want just an easy ride with the Platinum. But I didn't use them and I still found this really easy. I don't think that Final Fantasy 16 is a particularly challenging game. But I am very used to action RPGs. I play a lot of Devil May Cry, God of War, stuff like that. So maybe that is part of it. So if you're less familiar with that kind of thing, maybe I would put 16 up here. But it's like the games that it's in this category with, you basically just have to play the game. You just have to play the game, enjoy the story, do the side quests as they come, even if they can be a bit boring at times, and then do it again for Final Fantasy mode, which I would say is easier than Final Fantasy VII Remake's hard mode, which is why I've put it in easy category. Really, I didn't feel any difference in difficulty in Final Fantasy mode, really, apart from the fact that enemies just had more HP. But once you've set yourself up with an optimal setup, you've got your ultimate abilities, I went through it with Giga Flare, Zantetsuken, Dancing Steel, and then some spammable abilities like Rising Flame and I can't remember the Shiva one, Mesmerize, and Diamond Dust as an ultimate to kind of stagger things. You can get through this actually very, very easily. I didn't struggle with 16's Platinum at all, but I did really enjoy it. So that brings us to spin-offs. Now there are 9 spin-offs here, and some of these are the ones that I'm missing. So I'm going to start with the ones that I am missing based on speaking to other people who have got it, and also some of them I have started and not yet finished. So we're going to start with Chocobo's Mystery Dungeon. I'm going to put it in hard difficulty because it is long. I haven't played this one very much myself. It was on PS Plus, it's come off since then, and I'm not willing to buy it just yet. So if it ends up being like the last trophy I have to get, then I'll get it. But because it's not my kind of game typically, I'm leaving this till later. But speaking to other people, they say that it's good and it's not overly difficult. There are missable trophies in it, but it's not massively challenging like an ultimate difficulty one. It's just really long. So I can't speak too much on that particular game because I don't own it, but hopefully what I've been told by other people will help you gauge this one. Similarly, Final Fantasy 15 Monster of the Deep is not a game that I own, and therefore I haven't platinumed it. It's not a game I own because I don't own a PSVR, and I'm not prepared to go and buy a PSVR just to platinum this game. But if it gets to that point, I'll try and borrow one from a friend, because apparently it's actually quite fun. I'm not really a person that loves fishing games, but apparently this is actually quite a simple one. You can do this in like 15 hours. There's no missables. If you're enjoying it, you'll platinum it before you've even known it. So I'd be keen to hear from you guys. Like, have you played Monster of the Deep? Would you recommend it to other people? Because I haven't, and I'd be keen to know what you thought. I'll go into quickly talk about the ones that I haven't done, but I do own, I haven't got round to yet, which are Final Fantasy 15 Pocket. But this one, honestly, I'm just gonna do like when I've got some downtime. It's not difficult, it's very easy. If you're skipping cutscenes, you can do this in like 10 hours. Nothing's missable. You're just expected to do the missions at least once, and then some cleanup, like doing some little tasks while you're doing the missions. Bear in mind the 15 Pocket was designed as like a mobile experience, so they just ported it over to consoles and they kind of just threw a trophy list at it. So that one I'm not too worried about. Type 0 I'm actually going to put in hard because the time constraints within Type 0 make it hard, because you have to do everything, kind of like Persona. when you have a time frame to do any particular task. If you don't get all of the tasks done within that time frame, you've missed the boat. And for that reason, Type 0 I'm putting in hard. That, and I cannot stand the camera in Type 0 enough that it puts me off playing the game. The story's fine. I like aspects of Type 0, but that's the reason why I haven't gone in to platinum it. And then finally, Dissidia Final Fantasy NT. I actually like this game, but no one else does, which makes it very difficult to platinum, because you have to sit there and wait for 5 minutes anytime you want to get a game in with bots, because no one's playing it. But this is one I do want to work on soon, because I'm really worried that they're going to take it offline fairly soon, and that means that I'll never be able to get it. So if anyone is around who would like to join up with me to kind of trophy boost through Dissidia Final Fantasy NT, I'd really love to do it. Because you have to get 3 A+++, because they couldn't just call it S, rankings with every playable character. And when I was playing this more heavily, I was playing as Vayne, who is DLC, and therefore not part of the platinum. So that makes it a little bit harder for me. But the single player actually doesn't take all that much time to do. It's all about the multiplayer. And beyond that, it's not hard. Again, it's certainly not if you're getting people together to help boost each other through it. It's just long and tedious. So there's 4 left, and I have all the platinums for these ones. So we're going to start with Theatrhythm Final Bar Line. I'm going to put this in easy, because it is, but I loved every second of it. Like, this trophy can take you 20-25 hours if you really push for it, and I spent way longer on it because I just enjoyed every moment playing it. I love the music, I love rhythm games, I love that kind of hand-eye coordination skill that you need for it. I'm pretty good at it. I'm not like top level. Like, for those of you who've played it, I can get up to maybe like level 13, but anything beyond that, you're not human. Sorry about it. But I like Theatrhythm a lot, and I think that it is a nice, easy plat. I actually made a video a long while ago about what party to make for playing the game. And it took me through everything. Like, in terms of the trophies, you have to do the continuous battle mode where you have to win 20 times, and you have to win whilst sort of fitting within the parameters of the quests, not just doing the song. And that made it a little harder, but the party I had really helped with it. So really, I just don't think the Theatrhythm is difficult enough to ward you away from it, and I just think that people should play it more. People are going to hate me for this. So we have Crisis Core. Crisis Core I'm putting in moderate. Crisis Core has a lot of missables in it, like for the story, and that's not why I've put it there. I've put Crisis Core in here because I think it's really freaking boring. Well, it is and it isn't. Crisis Core Reunion is weird because it was very clearly designed as a PSP game. So you've obviously got very short quests that you have to get through. So, because you're supposed to be playing it on a bus and you stop after 5 minutes. Well, I didn't do that. I went through all of the quests in quick succession, and that's not fun. Don't do that. But if you have to complete all of them in order to get 100% of the quests done, and it's very easy to miss getting some of the quests in the early stages of the game. You can do most, if not all of it, in a single playthrough. I did have to start a second one. I can't remember why, but I did have to start a second one. And it's not a bad game. It's just that the way I think I played it, I think hurt my enjoyment of it, because, and that's the other thing you need to be careful of when it comes to plats, because while you can go in one direction and it can make you feel a new appreciation for a game that you really love, it can also kind of kill them for you if you're not careful. And I think that that has done it for me a couple of times. Not with many of the Final Fantasies, I'll admit, but Crisis Core was definitely one of them. There were 2 left. We've got Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin. I was debating whether to put this in moderate or hard. I'm putting it in moderate, and like there's no order within the tiers themselves. But if there were, I would put Stranger of Paradise at the top of moderate, like just under hard, because it's hard to get into. The Platinum itself is actually not too bad. Once you get to the end game and you can start grinding, it's actually very easy. And if you're willing to go into the DLC and get the stuff that you need from that, it's even easier for you to go back and do the stuff in the base game that doesn't require the DLC gear, because the DLC gear is straight up stronger than anything you would find in the base game. So you can go through it and do all of the missions that you need to do really quite easily. And I used a grinding method where you go, there's a particular mission that's based on Mount Gagazet, and there's a Marlborough at the end, and you literally don't even have to kill anything. You just run around, grab items, quickly get to the end, have your party members kill the Marlborough for you, and then you're done. And then you can just kind of use that to build up your item level. I found that really helpful. So once you get to a certain point, Stranger of Paradise is easy, but to get into Stranger of Paradise, for anyone who's not familiar with this kind of game, it can be pretty challenging. So it's definitely top of moderate, bottom of difficult. And then lastly, we have World of Final Fantasy. I'm gonna put it in hard. I want to put it in Ultima. Again, this is maybe a hot take. I cannot stand this game. I am a massive Final Fantasy lover. I love 99% of the games that are on this list. World of Final Fantasy is not one of them, and I know that it has its fans. People were trying to get me to play it for years when I started streaming, and then I did, and then people spoiled the story for me, so I stopped, and then I came back again, backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. And honestly, like, I'm glad somebody spoiled the story for me, because if I had gone in with no expectations, I would hate it even more than I do. But this is hard, not because it's difficult, but because it's horribly tedious. Having to do Mirage Master, which is you have to take all of the monsters that you get and sort of level them to max, essentially. It's like having to complete the Pokédex in a Pokemon game, but also have every Pokemon at level 100. It's so tedious, and because the grinding spot that's optimal for this is right at the end of an optional dungeon, getting there and back and changing your stuff around and making sure you have the right monsters for the job, it's a pain in the backside. And then you have to do all of the chests, you have to do all of the side missions. The mini games in World of Final Fantasy are by far the worst I have ever seen in a Final Fantasy game. And I've played through Blitzball, Tetramaster, Triple Triad, all of the mini games from 7 Remake, the squats, fishing in Final Fantasy 15. I've done all of them, and I can very confidently say I would take any one of them over any of the minigames, especially the stupid one with Tidus and Valor with the Blitzball, any day of the week. So it's the last one on my list because I wanted to leave it till last. Yeah, I'll leave it in hard because I'm sure people will probably feel differently from me, but I hated this one. But yes, there you go. That is my definitive ranking of every Platinum Trophies difficulty available on PlayStation 4 Final Fantasy games. I'm fairly confident that I haven't missed any, but if I have, please feel free to let me know in the comments below, because I'm sure you will, even if I don't tell you to. And I'd love to know if those of you who are trophy hunters have done the Final Fantasy games, if you feel differently to me. Oh, I'm really interested to see what future Final Fantasy titles will hold. Like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, I think is going to be a little bit bigger to tackle, even if not necessarily harder, but bigger to tackle than Remake was. Fingers crossed we ever get a Final Fantasy IX Remake. We don't see the return of King of Jump Rope. I would very much appreciate that. And if we get a remastered trilogy, which I think has been rumoured quite heavily recently for the Final Fantasy XIII trilogy, do we think that that's going to have a different trophy list than the others? Let me know what you guys think, because I'm really keen on trying to fill out the gaps in my list. So if you're missing Dissidia NT in particular and you want to play it with me, let me know, because I need people for that one. So that's going to be everything from me today. Thank you ever so much for watching. I haven't been uploading as much as I would like to recently. I've gotten a new job in the last couple of weeks that I'm very excited about, and that's kind of taken over. I'm still streaming 4 days a week. On my schedule is all in my description box below. You can find me on my socials, and I post everything on there every week. And it'd be lovely to chat to you guys about the Platinum Journeys and just anything to do with Final Fantasy that really dives into the meat of the game itself. Like, I know there's a lot of lore divers on Final Fantasy when it comes to YouTube, but I love playing the games and really just extracting everything I can out of them. So if you have ideas for things that you'd like to see on that, do let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Why do people say don't forget? No one forgets. They either just want to or they don't, and I don't really know why people say that. So I want to try and stop saying that. And click the bell for notifications. And if you're not sure what to comment below on what you thought was your favourite Platinum to get or one that you would like to get, just say the word algorithm, because believe me, it helps this channel a great deal. So thank you very much for doing that. And if you would like to support the channel further, perhaps you'd like to consider joining up on my Patreon, as these lovely people on the screen that you can see now have done, and I appreciate every single one of you a great deal. So thank you all very much for joining me, and I will see you next time, everybody. Take care. Bye bye.